Propaganda does not control people by force first. It controls them through the mind. Before a war begins on land, it begins inside people's thoughts. Before people follow a dangerous leader, they first believe his story. Before normal people begin hating strangers, someone teaches them who to fear. That is the power of propaganda. It does not always arrive like a lie. Sometimes it arrives like a warning. Sometimes it sounds like patriotism, protection, truth, or love for your people. And that is why it is so dangerous. Because the strongest propaganda does not feel like propaganda. It feels normal. It feels obvious. It feels like common sense. It feels like everyone already knows this. And slowly, without noticing, a person stops thinking freely. They start repeating. They start obeying. They start hating. They start defending ideas that were placed inside their mind by someone else. This is how propaganda controls the human mind. Not by making people feel stupid, but by making them feel certain. And a person who is completely certain is often easier to control than a person who is confused. Because confusion asks questions. Certainty obeys. Propaganda works because the human brain wants simple answers. Life is complicated. Politics is complicated. History is complicated. War is complicated. Human suffering is complicated. But propaganda hates complexity. It gives people a simple story. There is a hero. There is a villain. There is an enemy. There is a threat. There is one solution. And the mind likes that. Because simple stories feel safe. When people are scared, angry, poor, confused, or hopeless, they do not always want complicated truth. They want someone to explain their pain. They want someone to say, "This is why your life is hard. This is why your country is suffering. This is who destroyed your future. This is who you must blame." And once people are given an enemy, their anger finally has a direction. That is when propaganda becomes powerful. It takes pain and gives it a target. It takes confusion and gives it a story. It takes fear and gives it a face. Sometimes people do not believe propaganda because it is true. They believe it because it gives shape to their suffering. One of the oldest tools of propaganda is fear. When people are afraid, they stop thinking deeply. They react. They protect themselves. They look for safety. They trust whoever sounds strong. This is why propaganda often begins with danger. They are coming for you. They are destroying your culture. They are stealing your future. They hate your way of life. Once fear enters the mind, logic becomes weaker. A frightened person is easier to lead. A frightened crowd is easier to control. And a frightened nation can accept things it would normally reject. This is how ordinary people can support cruelty. Not because they are evil, but because fear convinces them cruelty is necessary. Fear says, "If you do not act now, you will lose everything." Fear says, "If you question this, you are helping the enemy." Fear says, "If you show mercy, you are weak." And when people believe they are protecting themselves, they can become blind to the pain they cause others. That is the dark psychology of propaganda. It makes hate feel like defense. It makes cruelty feel like courage. It makes obedience feel like survival. Propaganda also controls people through repetition. A lie repeated once sounds strange. Repeated many times, it becomes familiar. And familiar things feel safe. This is why slogans are powerful. Short lines. Simple words. Strong emotions. A slogan does not ask you to think. It asks you to repeat. And when millions repeat the same words, those words begin to feel bigger than truth. After a while, the slogan becomes identity. Then disagreeing with propaganda no longer feels like disagreeing with an idea. It feels like betraying your group. Because once an idea becomes identity, people protect it even from truth. They ignore evidence. They attack critics. They close their ears. Not because they cannot think, but because the idea has become part of who they believe they are. Propaganda does not only tell people what to think, it tells people what to feel. Humans are emotional before they are logical. Many times, emotion decides first. Then reason comes later to justify it. Propaganda understands this. So it does not begin with facts. It begins with emotion, pride, fear, anger, shame, hope, revenge, belonging. It shows emotional images. A crying child, a burning flag, a strong leader, a suffering family, a dangerous enemy, a glorious future. Before the mind asks, "Is this true?" the heart already feels something. And once emotion becomes strong enough, people stop asking careful questions. They ask, "Whose side are you on? Why are you defending the enemy? Are you against your own people?" This is how propaganda traps people. It makes questioning feel like betrayal. It makes doubt feel like weakness. It makes independent thinking feel dangerous. A person under propaganda may not feel controlled. They may feel righteous, awake, brave, and chosen. And that is why the control is so powerful. The cage is inside the emotion. And the person may defend the cage because it feels like freedom. Another powerful tool is dehumanization. Propaganda teaches people to see another group as less human. Not as mothers. Not as fathers. Not as children. Not as people with fear, memories, dreams, and pain. Just them. And once a group becomes them, cruelty becomes easier. This is why words matter. Because violence often begins as language. First people are mocked. Then blamed. Then feared. Then hated. Then stripped of their humanity. Propaganda also controls information. It does not always hide everything. Sometimes it shows one side only. It shows one image and hides the context. It gives one quote and hides the full speech. It shows one mistake and hides the pattern. That is why propaganda is hard to spot. Sometimes the information is not fake. It is incomplete. An incomplete truth can still control the mind. Propaganda becomes stronger when people feel lonely. A lonely person wants belonging. They want meaning. They want to feel part of something bigger. Propaganda offers that. You are not alone. You are one of us. You are special. You are fighting for a great cause. This creates identity. And once belief becomes belonging, leaving the belief feels like losing the group. That is why propaganda creates us versus them. Us means safety. Them means danger. Us means truth. Them means lies. And once the world is divided like that, thinking becomes smaller. A person stops asking, "What is true?" They ask, "What does my side believe?" Today, propaganda lives on screens. In short videos, edited clips, emotional headlines, viral posts, comments, memes, influencers, news feeds. Modern propaganda does not always need one dictator. Sometimes the algorithm does the work. It learns what makes you react. Then it gives you more of it. More fear. More anger. More outrage. More enemies. And if a person is not careful, their feed becomes a cage built from their own reactions. So how do you protect your mind? Slow down. Propaganda wants speed. It wants instant anger, instant fear, instant sharing, and instant judgment. So pause. Ask, Who benefits if I believe this? Why is this making me angry? What information is missing? Am I being shown the full picture? Is this trying to make me hate an entire group? These questions weaken propaganda. Also, protect your empathy. Never let anyone steal your ability to see humans as human. Because once your empathy is gone, someone else can use your mind as a weapon. A free mind is not a mind that believes nothing. A free mind is a mind that questions even the things it wants to believe. So when the world tells you who to hate, pause. When a message makes you instantly angry, pause. When someone gives you a simple enemy for every problem, pause. Because your attention is valuable. Your emotions are powerful. Your mind is sacred. And the person who controls your fear can control your choices. But the person who learns to question fear becomes very hard to control. That is how propaganda controls the human mind. And that is how awareness begins to set it free.